Hello, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another YouTube live show here tonight. I am John Kurtz. I am realizing the door behind me is not shut. 1 second. You guys know I'm all about appearances. All right, what we have today and tonight, more specifically, is the Pac-12 trying to fight back against this narrative that their conference is screwed, and the narrative that the Big 12 has been able to create here that has cast some doubt certainly on the future of the conference. And the Pac-12 has done so by sending out the president at the University of Arizona and the president at Arizona State to speak publicly. One through John Wilner, that was the president at Arizona. The president of Arizona State spoke to some other local paper. And what has happened today in just monitoring from afar the Twitter back and forth and the Twitter discourse, which on this is always quite interesting, to me has been the Pac-12 trying to take this as a battle cry, as a real way to fight back against the Big 12, claiming that these are comments that dunk on the Big 12. In fact, I would suggest that there is a dose of skepticism needed with the Arizona State president, though that one's a little more up in the air. But Arizona's president, who spoke to John Wilner, frankly, I came away from it thinking Arizona is exactly where we thought they were. The most likely school to jump to the Big 12 and a school that is certainly mulling its options right now. And that's basically what was said by the Arizona president. So I would not be riding as high as it seems like some folks in Pac-12 country are, having seen these quotes come out here today. In general, basically what we have is that both sides continue to fight this battle where the reality remains, I think, in the middle and very much the same. But we continue to get Dennis Dodd stories that go too far on the Big 12 side. And now we're getting Pac-12 narratives that skew too far to the Pac-12 side in light of some, I would say, the Arizona State side, more innocuous sort of quotes. And then on the Arizona side, damning quotes if you are somebody that wants Arizona and the Pac-12 and all of that to stick together. But we're going to get to all of that. We also have a little bit of news on the front of the Big Ten commissioner, what the Big Ten may do with commissioner, and more specifically the timeline on the commissioner of the Big Ten being put in place, which obviously ties directly into what we're talking about here. If we're talking about Pac-12 security, the biggest threat, and look, I will say this and have said it and we'll say it again. I mean, the biggest threat to Pac-12's long-term security clearly is the Big Ten, and it's Oregon and Washington, what's happening there. Depending on when the Big Ten can get a new commissioner in, that may change the way they want to go about this. It may change Oregon and Washington's mind about signing their name on the dotted line of a grant of rights with whatever this Pac-12 TV deal is going to be. That could be a real dynamic shifter. If we have time for it today, which I don't know, we shall see. A lot of times the realignment discussion really carries us throughout this, and we don't have as much time for it. But if we do have time for it, the Big 12 created a fairly innovative thing, an idea that I really do like, that I think has a lot of potential from Brett Yormark, which is to, starting in 2024, have a Big 12 only combine, like a pro day, combining pro days for all 14 teams in the league. And it is going to be televised on NFL Network. That's the kind of thing, when we go back to over and over again, like a broken record, what I have said about Yormark being willing to be creative, being willing to be innovative, trying new ideas, ways to generate extra revenue, extra exposure, right in that wheelhouse, what they're going to do with this combine. So I really, really did love that idea a lot. That's basically what we have. It's not a real detailed outline for tonight in terms of all this. I just want to talk about the state of where things are actually at with the Pac-12, what these quotes mean, how we should take these, how we should digest these, and just where the narrative battle is at right now, because it is just a mess, guys. I mean, I'll be honest. Like I log on to Twitter every day, and it is just a battlefield between the Big 12 and the Pac-12 with craziness on both sides. It is turned into a microcosm of what any kind of argument is in our day and age in 2023 these days. So it's just, there's so much that I think is misguided, and so many like straw mans and gaslighting and all sorts of different things happening on the front of the Big 12, Pac-12 Twitter battle. So I'll try and cut through some of that noise for you guys here tonight based on the comments that we saw from the presidents at Arizona and Arizona State. You know the deal. If you guys want to be a part of the show here tonight, over 120 people already in the chat. I will not have a chance to pay attention to everything that's going on in the chat. So if you want to make your voice heard, if you want to be a part of the chat tonight, get your question or comment on the show. You can guarantee that it will make the show by clicking the $ below the chat box where it says say something. Tax it up at the top of the chat for me. Ensures that your voice will be heard on the chat here tonight. And it is a way that you can support the work that I'm doing, bringing you Big 12 content week in, week out here on the channel. Truly could not do it without your support. And I genuinely appreciate you guys that do contribute to this a lot. Once again, could not do it without you. I would also say that if you want to just give me a little support for free, you can do that by clicking the mouse. That is all it takes. One click. It's just, just this little deal here. That's all it takes. Just like the video, people. Like the video. I would appreciate that. Helps me with the YouTube algorithm. And after the fact, if you're not watching this live, or if you want to wait until after the video is done, whatever, leave a comment in the comment section of the videos as well. That helps me out there too. Whether you love me or you hate me, I do not care. You agree, you disagree with whatever my takes have been here on the show tonight. Leave it in the comments. Let me know about it. Like the video. All of that stuff is a great way to help support the channel as well at no cost to you, other than whatever calorie it is that you're going to burn by clicking the mouse. That is literally it. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you are catching up after the fact, didn't get to see this live, and you want to support the channel as well, you can do so on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4. So here we go. Our web is starting us off tonight by saying reading comprehension is low in Pac country. Yeah, I can't even imagine what some of the narratives were in some corners of Pac-12 Twitter and the Pac-12 propaganda machine today, because I didn't go seeking anything out today. I simply just stood back and watched, and some of the usual suspects were still popping up there with all of this. And especially when I first saw the Arizona State quotes, I was like, all right, like, I get how they're taking this and spinning it to their narrative. Like, that does make some sense. Wilner used a very clever headline and a very clever tweet to link to an article that I think was 75% stuff that would make you feel better if you're the Big 12 about having a chance to pull Arizona and therefore start the domino effect to maybe pull apart the Pac-12. So yeah, if this is a celebratory day in Pac-12 land, I would say that reading comprehension does seem to be a bit of an issue there. But look, we are not our web. I will also say we are on our side. I'm not saying you or I personally, but on our side, we are not totally devoid of some reading comprehension issues at times too. That is the world that we live in. G. Thomas Holland. What's up, G. Thomas Holland? I appreciate you. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for being here. G. Thomas Holland says, all this realignment talk hinges on Oregon and Washington being all but gone. I've heard the Big Ten already voted no when USC joined. Your thoughts? Well, the Big Ten dynamics are in play here for sure, because they hold the most cards. If they want to go get Oregon and Washington, that's going to doom the league. If you lose Oregon and Washington out of the Pac-12, you're not surviving as anything, even in the second tier of what college football is going to be now. I think it doesn't really matter so much what happened when USC left at this point, because the Big Ten is about to have a new commissioner. And at the time, that was Kevin Warren. Now, Kevin Warren also, if you believe much of the reporting, has been somebody that was much more about, like, go conquer the world, go take Oregon and Washington, go take whatever it is that you can. He was very much like on a conquest to outduel the SEC and take over as much of the college football world as possible. And cold water was thrown on that, at least with the Oregon and Washington thing, by some combination of Fox and or Big Ten presidents. That is the basic reporting on this right now, what we have. So I guess if you wanted to say, hey, the president situation is going to be the same, Fox is going to be the same no matter what the commissioner is, probably not going to happen right now. Like, okay, I can start to listen to that, but we won't truly know until they have a commissioner in place. And the news about the Big Ten commissioner, we will start there. the news about the Big Ten commissioner since G. Thomas brought this up is that now this part is funny to me. Understand my laughter here. No offense, Rutgers. I know times are a little tough. You just got left out of the NCAA tournament, but it is the Rutgers athletic director who spoke here and gave us a timeline on the Big Ten commissionership. The article that I was reading this from on Yahoo Sports did say he is one of the most visible athletic directors in the conference. So maybe he is some figure that people are used to talking quite a bit. I can't imagine that the Big Ten would be thrilled, though, with the Rutgers athletic director being the guy who is going to let the cat out of the bag on a timeline and what some of their plans are here with the commissionership. But I digress. Not my problem. Not my problem to deal with at all. The article on Yahoo Sports says the Big Ten could have a commissioner in place by Memorial Day, at least according to one of the conference's most visible athletic directors. In a podcast interview this week, Rutgers athletic director Pat Hobbs said the search committee for the commissioner role has been formed by the Big Ten and that the search firm hired by the Big Ten to vet candidates is making progress. Quote, they're trying to do this as quietly as possible. Funny way to start this whole thing, right? They're trying to do this as quietly as possible. So let me give some of the details on a podcast. He says, my understanding is that there is great interest in the position, not surprisingly. They've received a lot of resumes from a wide sort of range of backgrounds, some college, some not college. I haven't seen those resumes. We won't see those resumes. We've kept up to date on where the search is. I think there's a confidence that they will conclude the search sometime before the end of May. I think that's really the goal. I think that's a doable goal. There's not a lot of people who can be Big Ten commissioner, in my view. This is not sort of inside information from the committee. So by the end of May, that gives us a timeline, and that's like a month and a half out. Like the Big Ten feels like they can get a commissioner in within the next month and a half. Pin that timeline up against what the Pac-12 is dealing with right now, like very much so trying to get their TV deal done very quickly. John Wilner continues to move by half a point. I mean, if we extrapolated that out like the end of May, we're talking about now the Pac-10 survival rate being at like maybe a slight underdog. Whereas right now it started at a 5.5 point favorite every week, right? It goes down. I think that's what it was. Every week it would go down by half a point, according to Wilner. We'd be getting into really dicey territory if the Big Ten gets a commissioner hired then and there's still no Pac-12 TV deal. I'm sure it will take some time to get the bearings of whoever it is that's coming in there and all of that, right? But that is when things could really start to move in the Big Ten if they so choose. We'll find out what this new commissioner's sort of ideal is going to be. Would it be as aggressive as Kevin Warren? I mean, I think it would be hard to be as aggressive as Kevin Warren, certainly hard to be more aggressive than Kevin Warren, but we'll see. I don't think the Big Ten is going to hire somebody that's going to want to come in and do it like just right away. But knowing that that date is going to be May potentially, and now the Big 12 followed through on what its timeline was for Yormark. I don't really have a great frame of reference for how often they hit these target dates for all of that. But if they do hit that target date, if you're Oregon or Washington, the interesting part to me becomes you're hell-bent on getting to the Big Ten. You certainly can lay claim more so than anybody else in the landscape right now, other than Notre Dame, that you belong in the Big Ten. Are you going to sign your grant of rights? Are you gonna sign those TV rights away literally like inside of a month before the Big Ten produces a new commissioner, and you don't know how this commissioner feels about expansion, and you could be signing your rights away for 3 to 5 years? That's a tricky thing. Like, I just wonder how much this will factor into one of the key parts of this whole TV deal saga that I have said over and over again. I don't think it's enough run. Whether or not you can get Oregon and Washington to sign on that dotted line, not just for a TV deal, but to sign away their rights, their TV rights, which would mean that for the next 3 to 5 years, if they were to leave for another conference, the Pac-12 would still get the money from their games on TV, right? That's the real binding thing here. Is Oregon going to want to do that if they know that the Big Ten is going to have a commissioner that quickly? We shall see. And I don't know, maybe Oregon looks at that timeline and says, that's actually a little longer than we thought it might take. I sincerely doubt that, but maybe they do. I just think that is the piece of this to really monitor when we're talking about what is going on at this point in time with the Big Ten commissioner. So I do think that was a fairly valuable update. And in this world where like everybody's reading every tidbit of information here and everything can kind of control and dictate a news cycle, how much is like Phil Knight, for instance, paying attention to that and being like, all right, where's this going to go? Who's it going to be? And do we really want to make a commitment before doing that? I will even tie it back to one of the quotes from the Arizona president with John Wilner today was about This is actually Wilner writing this, but he says Robert Robbins is the Arizona president, says Robbins rejected the notion that schools, including Arizona, would bolt for the Big 12 prior to being presented with a media rights proposal, which we'll get into more of that in a second. But like, of course, I think to anybody that's being reasonable about this, they would say, yeah, like that's kind of what we've been saying and waiting for the whole time. They're going to need to see what that deal is that's presented to them. And then that's when rubber meets the road and they will decide whether or not that's going to be good enough for them. Same sort of concept applies here, right? Like, would Oregon sign anything on the Pac-12 dotted line until they know for sure what's going on in the Big Ten right now? Until you know for sure that the answer is going to be no in the immediate future from the Big Ten? That's a tricky thing. And the dynamics of that are not easy to figure out at all. And that's one of the things I think that is making George Kliavkov's life very difficult right now. So anyway, I think it's a good question to bring up, G. Thomas Holland. Things certainly had slowed down for now with the presidents at Fox and whatever the powers may be in the Big Ten kind of stymieing Kevin Warren on his quest to conquer the college football world for now. And obviously that would include taking Oregon and Washington. But that very easily could change when you have somebody new in charge. We will see how it goes. Boom to the Sooner. What's up, Boom to the Sooner? Thank you for being here. Appreciate you as always, my friend. Boom to the Sooner says, if Yormark was the Pac-12 commissioner, what moves do you think he'd be making right now? Boy, that is a very interesting question. Really good question. Well, as of the news that we got today, maybe producing a conference-wide combine to help get some extra exposure, get them on NFL Network. I would think, boy, I don't know. I mean, it's a really tough call, and some of this is difficult because Yormark like outfoxed Kliavkov. So like in this scenario, has Yormark already been outfoxed by Yormark? I think like if you take it back to when Yormark was hired by the Big 12, if he had been hired by the Pac-12 at that point in time, what would he do? I think he would have taken like a similar deal to what the Big 12 signed with ESPN and Fox and done it for the Pac-12 just to ensure the visibility there. I think he would have probably understood the need for that more. I think that is one of the things. And just been more realistic. I think he also would have been more realistic about the Pac-12's value and just would have gotten something done quicker. Like he's a deal maker. He would get something done quickly. It would not be taking this long in all likelihood. The only pushback to that I could imagine is if you're really going to say, hey, if it's Apple, one of these streaming partners, people talk about them being real persnickety and difficult to deal with. Maybe that's what's happening. And if you were having to go down that road, it would just be impossible to avoid. But I think Yormark just would not have put himself in this situation. If you hired him tomorrow, what would he do? I don't know. Because I don't think there are a lot of great options right now for the Pac-12. But I think he might do something that we're not even thinking about right now. Like, was anybody thinking about Gonzaga when he got hired? Was anybody thinking about this conference-wide combine when he got hired? Was anybody thinking about Fat Joe performing at the Big 12 conference tournament? No. I don't think anybody was thinking any of those things, but that's what Yormark did. I just think he would be moving a lot more swiftly and confidently than what Kliavkov seems to do. You know, another thing I think he would do really well, I think he would be controlling the narrative better. I think he would work on that. I think he would definitely work on controlling the Pac-12 narrative. I think he would do a much better job of that. Hopefully for everybody's sake, he would bring Karen with him. You know, the Pac-12, I'm sure, would love Karen to be on their side. All hail Overlord Karen. All hail my overlord Karen. I'm sure he would bring her along for the ride too. That's a very good question. Very good question. Boom to the Sooner. Julius Maximus, what's up, Julius? Great to see you. Thank you for your support. Really good to see you, my friend, here today. Thank you. Appreciate you a ton. Always really do sincerely appreciate your support. Julius Maximus says, howdy, John. Today on BYU Sports Nation, Stuart Mandel said that Gonzaga going to the Big 12 was going to happen, quote, within a few weeks, and that it was inevitable. Okay. I don't share that opinion, but I would like your thoughts. Anyways, go Cougs. Interesting on the Mandel front, because someone else had told me about a podcast that he did. A couple of you guys, I think it mentioned in my DMs on Twitter that he did. Well, it must have been his own podcast or someone's at The Athletic earlier this week, where he was still kind of pushing back against the Big 12. I can't remember all the specifics of what exactly he said, but I did disagree with it. Actually, I think I could pull it up real quick here and tell you what it was. Stuart Mandel said the Pac 12 wouldn't care if they lost Arizona and Colorado because they would make more per school if Arizona and Colorado left, which I mean, like, I don't know what kind of a take that really is. At that point, you're going to have to replace schools just from an inventory standpoint for your TV deal. SMU and San Diego State are not going to provide as much monetary value as Arizona and Colorado. I'm sorry. Maybe you could try to argue with me that it would be a minimal decrease, but I don't know. I think you'd still be losing there. Anyway, point being, I guess Mandel has been saying a lot of things on podcasts here as of late. Do I think Gonzaga to the Big 12 is inevitable? I don't. Is it inevitable if the Big 12 does not lure any four corner schools? I still wouldn't say inevitable, but I do think it may be more likely than not. It feels like, we had the report recently that the Big 12 and Yormark specifically were thinking of packaging the basketball media rights separately, taking that away. Like instead, everybody right now, it's all together, your football and your basketball broadcast rights, separating those out to try and make more money, like better monetize the basketball rights there. If that's the way he's going, it certainly seems like he needs or wants more big gun basketball editions. You got a great basketball league right now, but Brett Yormark is not somebody who was ever satisfied. Moved the Nets over to Brooklyn from New Jersey. He got the biggest North American sponsorship deal in history at the time for NASCAR and created and made it a much more popular national sport. Like this is not somebody who thinks small. I think he's thinking pretty big on all of that. And I think if you're reading the tea leaves, there probably is something that's going to happen on the basketball front, regardless of whether it includes Arizona or not. So I think that's just a little overstated. I think it's strong, but maybe Mandel does have that info. I mean, he also, he takes a lot of crap here. I understand that. And rightfully so sometimes, but he's a guy that's been doing this national college football reporting thing for a long time at a much higher level than I ever did. And I never really professed to be a reporter. So like, I'm sure he's more well-sourced than I am on that. And maybe that is accurate. Again, you always have to stop and think. I will steal a line from the Pac-12 folks here. And so you have to stop and think when you see things like this. Who is the source? What do they have to gain from this? What are their general biases and all of that? And Mandel certainly is somebody who has more of an affinity for the Conference of Champions and those on the West Coast than he does the Big 12. So is there some motive for the Pac-12 to want that info out there or something? I don't know. But you do have to treat, and this goes for anyone. This isn't really a knock against Mandel. It's like anybody now. You do have to treat what they're putting out there with some ounce of skepticism and run it through a couple of filters, I think. So long way to say, I think that I would kind of be, if Mandel is like here on it, I'm probably like here on it, whereas this would be not happening. I think something is going to get done. I would also not put it past him to, not stop at Gonzaga and be able to grab Villanova or somebody else to come along with that. But it seems like he has big plans for basketball. He is a basketball guy. That is his background, loves the sport. And I would bet that he has some pretty big plans as far as that goes. So, Julius, appreciate the question. And I legitimately do appreciate you guys that alert me to things that are said on podcasts like that, because like I can't listen to every single thing. So it's helpful to have you guys looking up some of that. Christian, what's up, Christian? Christian says, are we sure that Kliavkov isn't in his own little darkness retreat? How does he not have an update 9 months after immediately negotiating a deal? That's an interesting one. Boy, there's another guy. I tell you what, the discourse about Aaron Rodgers on Twitter never seems to be all that civil either. There's a lot going on there. Aaron Rodgers made plenty of headlines today. But anyway, I would guess that Kliavkov is not like holed up somewhere where they just slip you food through a slot and you're in darkness 24 hours a day. But I don't know. Maybe there are probably some days where it is felt like that. Hello, darkness, my old friend, for Kliavkov with the way the media narrative has gone. But I don't know. And I'm not sure. Like, Christian, I'm going to use this as a jumping off point for the story about the Arizona president here with John Wilner. I don't know how he wouldn't read this story and think, boy, this is not great. We've got the president of Arizona admitting to having affinities for the Big 12 in an article published by one of our guys. That's what happened here with John Wilner's piece. I would think that that would bring some darkness to your life. In fact, I'm going to go look up what the Wilner. I meant to grab that for you first. What the headline of the article was, like how it was teased on Twitter. So it says, this is his tease to the article on Twitter. It says, Arizona President Robert Robbins on the Pac-12 media rights and Big 12 rumors. Quote, why would you move for a couple $1 million a year more? And I've got to hand it to Wilner, with this all being framed as like the Pac-12 fights back, sort of. That is a way to try to fight back. That is taking one little quote, like 25% of the 100% that is in here, and spinning it the most positively in 280 characters to get a lot of interaction on social media and help combat the anti-Pac-12 narrative. That's what you're doing there. But if we get into the nitty-gritty of what is actually here, Arizona President Robert Robbins called the departure of UCLA and USC clearly huge losses, but said the remaining Pac-12 schools are rallying and joining arms to make it work. Central to the process of making it work is the completion of a media rights agreement for the contract cycle that begins in the summer of 2024. Negotiations began last July and should be resolved, quote, soon, Robbins told the hotline during an interview on Tuesday. Soon. How many different ways can the Pac-12 and the media surrounding it and the presidents and the athletic directors say we're going to have a media deal soon? We're getting up there. Like, I'm impressed with the creativity here by this league of how many different ways they can have somebody come out and say, yeah, it's coming soon. It's coming soon. We're going to get there. Don't worry about it. It's coming. I'm here for anybody that can relate to driving on, like Main Street in Kansas City right now. It's like everything. Oh, more construction, coming soon, going to be done soon, going to be done. No, never done, unending. It is perpetual right now. Asked about speculation over the future of the conference, Robbins rejected the notion that schools, including Arizona, would bolt for the Big 12 prior to being presented with a media rights proposal. Quote, it's heavily dependent on George and his team negotiating a good media deal for us to stay competitive. So let's digest this. He says nobody, including Arizona, would bolt for the Big 12 prior to being presented with a media rights proposal. Of course. Like, anybody who's not just being total off in la la land Big 12 homer would say that, right? Like, you're going to have to be presented with something. Whether or not it actually gets signed is an entirely different deal. I don't think anybody is disputing that George Kliavkoff can bring a presentation, like present some sort of deal, get it on a PowerPoint, and show it to presidents across the Pac-12. Like, we understand there is going to be some form of a deal. The question is whether or not that will be good enough. And the Arizona president not only specified that it was like we wouldn't leave prior to being presented with a deal, he also said it's heavily dependent on George Kliavkoff and his team negotiating a good media deal for us to stay competitive. So he's saying it's contingent. Like, us staying in the league is contingent on getting a good media rights deal. Not, again, anything we don't already know, but that's basically what's been reported a bunch of times in a bunch of different ways. And there's been all this pushback from the Pac-12. Well, now you've got a university president that just said it out loud, just said it on the record, and just said it to the guy that works for the Pac-12 hotline. The Pac-12 hotline says Arizona will, what you read into that is Arizona will leave if there is not a good media deal presented here. It's contingent on getting a good, viable media deal. Are we really reading that and parading around saying the Pac-12 won this news cycle and this is just a huge victory for the league? I guess do it if you want, but I would not feel comforted by that. Now, the other quote after that is, I don't think anybody wants to leave. Why would you move for a couple $1 million a year more? Which, of course, is the quote that makes it into the headline. Funny how that works. Of course, nobody there wants to leave. If you're the Pac-12, you're in a league. It's been working, although with some problems and flaws, but you don't want to up and leave this group. It is inconvenient. Who wants to move? Like, let me put it that way. Like, if all things being equal, yes, sure, if you could move into a super mansion, you'd be excited to move. But the process of moving sucks. Nobody likes to do it. Nobody ever wants to do it. So if given the choice, like, hey, you can chill on the couch tonight, or you can start boxing up your crap to move, 10 out of 10 people are selecting, I would just rather stay here and not mess with that. Moving is a pain. Nobody wants to do it. That's what this is. Of course, nobody wants to do it. They would rather make the same money, have everything stay equal, be on equal footing with the Big 12 and not have to do anything, not have to worry about how you're going to send all your schools to West Virginia, your non-revenue sports to West Virginia on a Tuesday night. You'd rather not have to deal with that. But the point is, you might have to. And I don't think anybody here is disputing. Certainly, I am not disputing that everybody in the Pac 12, if they had their choice, it would be get us a media deal that is competitive enough with the Big 12 that we all can stay and we don't have to do this whole mess. We know this. We know this, but that doesn't mean that that is what is going to happen. It could still be that a subpar deal comes back and you say, well, now, look, things have changed. Kids are growing older. Like, I have to have a bigger house. Even though this sucks and I don't really want to do it, I would prefer to stay here. It's something I have to do for my long-term viability or for my family or whatever it might be. Like, that is the analogy here. So that just, it drives me crazy that gets paraded around like it's a big deal. The other part of it is, for just a few $1 million more, well, it's not just about that. It's about leaving somewhere where you're not having to look over your back about Oregon and Washington every 2 seconds. It's going somewhere that has more stability, better basketball, all these different things. It is beyond just a couple $1 million. It's a very short-sighted way of looking at it. Also, if it's going to be predominantly streaming in the Pac-12, then you're talking about visibility issues. Like, it's not as simple as just a couple $1 million. Here are some more quotes from this article. Quote, I would love to be closer to the Big Ten or the SEC, but being closer to the Big 12 is more realistic. That's in terms of money. Being closer to the Big 12 is more realistic. Look, sounds like Robert Robbins is a hell of a lot more realistic himself than his own commissioner, who has said publicly and doubled down on that we are going to catch the Big Ten and the SEC financially at some point. That was a real thing that happened, and I will not let anybody forget it. That is a real thing that happened. Twice during the 10-minute conversation, Robbins made a reference to the Pac-12 as, quote, the Conference of Champions. Kliavkov has done a great job working on the media deal, and I think he'll bring us something that's good enough. Very similar to what we heard from Ray Anderson, the AD at Arizona State, not that long ago, where he was like, look, it's been really frustrating. I'm not going to lie. There have been frustrations. But at the end of the day, I think he'll bring something to us that's going to be viable enough to keep the conference going for now. That's the company line right now. Like, from everybody in the Pac-12, that is the standard company line. I think George will get us something that will keep it together. And if I were still predicting, I would predict Kliavkov gets something that's going to be a little bit less monetarily than what the Big 12 has, a little bit less exposure-wise than what the Big 12 has, but will probably be just enough to slap a Band-Aid on this for the time being and keep the conference afloat for now. I will continue to say that. I think that is still the most likely option, but there is certainly reason to doubt that. Here is where it starts to get very interesting. The article says, but Robbins painted a nuanced picture for Arizona, citing the school's proximity to the Big 12 footprint and that the league's powerhouse basketball brand is the basis for, quote, some affinities. Some affinities. The president, the president of the University of Arizona just publicly said in an interview with the Pac-12 hotline that they have some affinities for the Big 12 because of proximity and because of basketball. Again, we know this. We knew this. We've heard Jason Scheer. We've seen people, but we have not actually seen a university president come out in the light of day and say that. And not only that, we know this isn't somebody who's just going to blatantly take something out of context. Like, this is John Wilner. This is the Pac-12 hotline. This is front lines of the Pac-12 battle right now. He printed that. What are we doing here? That's not a W for the Pac-12. That is not a W to have that be out there in this article here today. It just makes me shake my head. Like, Arizona State, Utah's presidents, when they've been out there, they've been much more defiant about this and not wanting to give the Big 12 an inch. Arizona's president admits to having some affinities for Big 12 basketball and their proximity to the league. That is a far cry. It does not, when we're talking about four corners, there's another nuance of it. It is not that all four would just head over heels, jump and go now. No, none of them really want to leave, but you're going to have to get one. You're going to have to wrestle one away. And Arizona has seemed to be the most likely the whole time. This is now like some public confirmation that Arizona is going to be the easiest to wrestle away. And you would hope that starts a domino effect. So there is a little bit more here. Maybe I'll hop back into it. But that is the important part of what the Arizona president said. And I just do not understand how the Pac 12 is taking a victory lap when this was printed today in the Pac 12 hotline. I know I've got a ton of donations to get to coming at you right now, starting with Christian. Sorry, Christian. Already got to yours. But I appreciate the question, Christian. Obviously, that sent me off on quite a tangent. Oliver. What's up, Oliver? Thank you for the support. Thank you for being here. Appreciate that. And appreciate you, my friend. Oliver said, statements made by the Pac-12 today are expected. No team from the Pac-12 will move to the Big 12 until they evaluate their new deal. Unequal revenue sharing for Oregon and Washington will encourage schools to join the Big 12. Go Cougs. And that is a COOGS for Houston. So, yes, go Cougs indeed. Best of luck to you guys in the NCAA tournament. Unequal revenue sharing is an interesting piece of this. We'll see how that would fit into. And that's probably a part of the calculus, obviously, for Oregon and Washington right now. Big Ten commissioner, can we get unequal revenue sharing? Like, how are you going to convince us to sign on the dotted line to give up our rights, our TV rights here for 3 to 5 years? And yes, you reiterate a very strong and very sensible point there, Oliver. Yes, of course. I totally agree with you, and I agree with what the Arizona president said. Nobody is leaving until they see a concrete deal on the table from Kliavkoff. But that is the problem. Seems to be that there are issues in getting that and getting one that would be satisfactory for everybody. So, yeah, I'm with you. The unequal revenue sharing, if I were Oregon or Washington, I would sure as hell be fighting for it. The ACC is fighting for it right now. Those big boys in the ACC they're not afraid to do it publicly. You've got all the leverage in the world right now with the way all this is going. The more the media narrative spins out of control, you've got even more leverage on George Kliavkoff and the conference and like the Oregon states and Washington states of the world. So you might as well use your muscle while you have it. I just don't know how much that's really going to net you. How much can they really kick you out of this thing? Like, we're talking a couple mil. It sounded like the ACC's thought when they started getting hit with all this from their big boys was like, maybe it can be $2 or $3 million extra a year or something. That's nothing that's going to solve any of the real problems, the existential problems that these schools are facing with their peers in the Big Ten and the SEC taking off monetarily. So yeah, I think very, very sound there, Oliver. I'm with you. I'm with you, my friend. Tim, what's up, Tim? Tim, first super chat from Tim McGreevy. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. And especially because you are a Jayhawk, as I see in your lovely message here. I know I must not always be the most fun to listen to if you are a Jayhawk. So I appreciate the fact that you do. Tim says, I've been watching you on YouTube for a while now. Just wanted to say I enjoy your work. Go Jayhawks. Hey, appreciate it, Tim. Thank you very much. My best to Bill Self. Hope that he is going to be ready to go tomorrow. It sounds like KU says that's the plan, but he hasn't been made available publicly since everything happened with his apparent heart condition. So certainly wishing the best for him. And I appreciate you, Tim, very, very much for watching the channel. And just lost my place here. Sorry, hopped on me. James, what's up, James? James, thank you, my friend. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. And always, always appreciate your support. James says, whatever deal the Pac puts together, it seems like the members will be diminished. The Pac-12 brand has been damaged with the lack of a deal fiasco. Even a great deal at this point may fail to change hardening opinions. Well, if we're talking about outside world opinions, hardening opinions from the outside world, yes, I think you're absolutely right. And this will be one of the things moving forward to monitor for the Pac-12, even if they do pull this off. If Kliavkoff does pull off the Band-Aid and get enough of a deal done, it's going to be what is the long-term reputation harm here, combined with whatever lack of exposure you might be getting by what seems like the most likely route for their TV deal, which would be more streaming heavy than any of the other leagues now. How much are you going to take a hit with that? Are you going to continue to miss out on the college football playoff? Will the Big 12 continue to send schools from the new Big 12 into the new college football playoff? How are these things going to play out, and what is the overall reputation hit over time? Kliavkoff also, to me, has not shown me a damn thing to make me think that he will get better at controlling the narrative in the future. And this even goes back to, the guy signed up for the alliance and then got duped with that. He has made such whiny, crazy public comments multiple times now, including again saying that they were going to track down the SEC and Big Ten financially. I would have my doubts that they're going to recover that reputation anytime soon. And we as Big 12 fans know better than anybody in college football how harmful that reputation can become and how difficult it is to shed that reputation. It took a long time for the Big 12 to shed that, and it's really only now with Brett Yormark, basically, that they have kind of been able to, proactive league that's trying new and innovative things and not just being reactive and getting punked all the time. It also helped that the USC UCLA thing happened too, to be like, oh, hey, there's another league where the same thing happened and they're overall doing worse, right? And now that narrative has kind of been pushed off to the Pac-12. Like I literally today, kind of out of nowhere, just before I hopped on to do the live show, I saw this tweet from the college football Reddit college football. It is the meme of Bill Belichick with his binoculars at the combine peering in, and it says the Pac-12 learning about true TV, and then Bill Belichick with the binoculars, which is pretty funny. That's good. You see true TV with the NCAA tournament, like, oh, another network, like Ion TV. That this could be something we explore here. That's very good. It's very funny. It's also kind of a gratuitous joke. And that's where the Pac-12 is at reputation-wise right now. Like they are taking the gratuitous jokes on the chin over and over again because of what has happened here. There is long-term damage being done to the Pac-12's reputation, no doubt, no matter what exactly happens. I also think like the very public flirtation with SMU. Shout out to SMU Anon. The very public flirtation with SMU has hurt. That got them wrung through the mud with a lot of jokes coming. Because people don't, I got news for you. And I know I said I would be nice to SMU. I said I would be nice and understand their plight. Like they finally are getting to a major conference. Of course, they're going to be fighting for it, whatever. But like I saw so many SMU replies today taking these quotes and being like, oh, we're dunking on you. This is awesome. Like nobody respects SMU. So it was seen as a joke when the commissioner of the Pac-12 is sitting at a basketball game with the athletic director at SMU. So I'm sorry, Mustangs, but I just had to say that there today. So anyway, there have been a lot of things that have really hurt the rep of the Pac-12 here that I think are going to be fairly long lasting. Cat fan in Huskerland, a.k.a. Daniel Osborne. What is up, my guy? Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support, as always. Cat fan in Huskerland, a.k.a. Daniel Osborne, says, looking forward to a K-State, Creighton, Kansas, and Houston Final Four. Okay, K-State, Creighton, Kansas, and Houston. With K-State beating Kansas in the final, revenge for 88. I am dreaming, but I wish all the Big 12 teams the best of luck in the tournament. We're not the only one dreaming, Daniel, because Trae Young, former Oklahoma Sooner, shout out boom to the Sooner. Trae Young earlier today revealed his bracket, which was an all Big 12 Final Four. It was K-State, Baylor on one side, Kansas, Texas on the other, and K-State beating Texas for the national championship. Give it to me. I would take it right now. That'd be amazing. It would also be great to get some revenge on the Hawks for 1988 when they beat K-State in the Elite Eight and went on to win the national championship. Their program took off like a rocket, and K-State sunk like a rock after that point. Real divergence of the two programs in 1988 when Mitch Richmond and company lost in the Elite Eight to Kansas and Danny Manning. So I would love some revenge for that. I have K-State, I believe, going out in the Sweet 16. I was trying to just be fairly rational. It's really hard, like with your team in the tournament, because there's no way for me to be like unbiased, and then I feel like I try to pull myself back too much. So I don't know. I've got him in the Sweet 16. That seemed to me like just a fair spot to not go too crazy, but we'll see, man. I would love, obviously, for this team to make a run to the Final Four, and I appreciate your Cat fandom, my friend. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate you as always. Trevor, what's up, Trevor? Trevor Whitlow checking in. Appreciate your support, my friend. Thank you for being here. Trevor says a Pac-12 podcast monikered No Truck Stops called me a derogatory name. Okay, so Pac-12 podcast called No Truck Stops called you a derogatory name. Well, I've not heard of this Pac-12 podcast. No Truck Stops. I mean, I got to hand it to them. Like, we've obviously embraced the Truck Stop Conference thing here, and the Gambling Gauchos have helped us embrace the Truck Stop Conference with their incredible graphic design work. That's a pretty good podcast name. That's a pretty good podcast name. That's funny. I can appreciate that. Like, look, I can appreciate some cleverness on the other side here. I always say, like, what I love in social media, chance at games, student sections, whatever it might be, like, be clever, not vulgar. Clever, not vulgar is the way to go. And it sounds like clever with the name, maybe vulgar with what it is that they said. But anyway, I'm sorry about that, Trevor. I'm sorry about that. And I guess we now know all to watch out for the No Truck Stops podcast. Got to watch out for the good old No Truck Stops podcast. I'm going to have to assume that would be BYU fans at the helm of that. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. Let me give you the Arizona State University president comments. I should have done this earlier. This is my fault. I have failed you as a host by not delivering this earlier. Here is what Arizona State President Michael Crow told the state press. Don't know much about that paper. It is the state press, and it was like 2 quotes in an article that went on about a lot of other things. There were a lot of other, it was like Arizona state specific topics that they were talking to the AD about. But he said, quote, "We're close to knowing where we're going to be. And I think we're close to a deal," ASU President Michael Crow said. "I think that the Pac-12 media rights became more complicated with the departure of USC and UCLA. The media rights became more complicated also, as things always do, because markets go like this. They're up and down, up and down. But we have fabulous sports teams, and the remaining teams, we're going to get a good offer. We're in the final stages of that process." So that is like the meatiest part of that first quote. We're in the final stages of that process. We will see. I have no reason in a vacuum to doubt what the Arizona State president would say, but I do have reason to doubt the Pac-12, because the Pac-12 is kind of turning into the boy who cried wolf when it comes to being done with this TV deal. Like, how many times, again, I mentioned this earlier, but how many times have we heard some variation of very near future, soon, gonna be done quickly, resolve soon? Like, we've heard it every single way you could possibly say it, and yet it hasn't happened. We are over a month and 2 days away from the unity statement from the Pac-12 that said that they look forward to closing a media deal in the very near future. That was the quote, in the very near future. Has been like 34 days. I don't know about you. I would not consider that to be the very near future. But that's what the Pac-12 has done. We've had John Canzano, who clearly is getting a lot of information and stuff fed to him by sources inside the Pac-12. We've had him say multiple times that he expected something to be done, and it has not come to pass. Most recently being the Pac-12 basketball tournament last week, where he was saying he expected some kind of major news to come out of there, some kind of big update, and we got zip, nothing. So it's just, I have to meet it with some skepticism because of what I have seen from the Pac-12 so far, as far as when they're going to be close. But I mean, this could very well be true. It could very well be true. And it's, again, no fault. I don't doubt Michael Crow on his own merit. I doubt his league. I doubt whoever's been talking to him, right? Like George Kliavkov. If it's Kliavkov that's saying that, man, can those guys even trust George? Because George was out there telling them that they would get $40+ million per school per year. He grossly overvalued what the conference was worth. He's made mistakes before. I don't know where the trust would come from on that front. Here's the other quote from the Arizona State president. It says, CBS Sports reported last week the Big 12 renewed contact with Arizona State, Arizona, Colorado, and Utah, and that the 4 schools' interest in leaving for the Big 12 has picked up in recent weeks. Here's the quote from Crow, Arizona State president. He says, quote, "There have been no discussions with the Big 12 conference on moving. I mean, there's been discussions between everyone everywhere on all things related to where our conference is going and where stuff's going to end up and what's happening. We are committed to the Pac-12. Once again, I will just repeat the same message here. There is reason to be skeptical. I also understand it's kind of an impossible situation, because I would sit here and say, look, if a school is leaving and the university president is doing some long interview with the state press where they're addressing like 5 or 6 different topics, I think of it as like I used to have a standing every other week interview with Kansas State athletic director Gene Taylor when I was still doing my radio show. He's going to get asked that. Like, you're going to have to say something publicly. I don't know the specific context of all of this, but if you're going to be asked about it, you're going to have to say it publicly. Even if you are having those conversations, you absolutely cannot admit it publicly. You have to say what he said. So it's kind of a, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because if they really truly have nothing to hide there and they're not going at all and they're having no conversations and you said it, I would still say like there's legitimate reason to be skeptical about it because you just can't say it publicly at all under any circumstance. So it's just that is why I don't take these as like some like alley-oop lob jam that the Pac-12 threw down on the league here. You can say what you want to say if you're the Arizona State president, but there's reason to be skeptical, and there's certainly reason to be skeptical about when it is that deal is actually going to be done. Like whether or not I believe that you're in the final stages of that process. So no fault of Arizona State's own, no fault of Michael Crow's own. I don't really know the guy from Adam. But I do know that if he were having those conversations and doing his proper due diligence, which by the way, I think is a part of his job that he should be doing, and I would think is doing, you can't say it publicly. You can't say it publicly. I mean, it's great. The Pac-12 got another statement there. We're all committed to the Pac-12. Anybody who's followed realignment knows like that's how this works. Everybody is publicly all committed until they're not, until the better option shows up, until you don't like the TV deal, until Oregon and Washington say enough of this, like whatever it might be. Things can change like that, and everybody's committed until they're not. That is just the way it goes. McMuffin. What's up, McMuffin? Appreciate you, man. McMuffin, always love having you here. He says, my only wish is that we stop listening to shadowy Twitter accounts from West Virginia that spew word vomit until something sticks. Gonna guess there, McMuffin, that you're talking about MHV3ER, whatever it might be. I always screw up the handle. I don't do that to mock or on purpose. I can never remember exactly what it is. I've told you guys for a long time, I just take it with a grain of salt. Be cautious with it. I think it's entertaining, but I just treat it as entertainment. It does seem in some ways like kind of fan fiction-y and just throwing a lot of darts where eventually, some things are going to stick, some things won't. I will just say this, at least there is at least talent there in knowing like how to put out information that is like believable enough that can get people to follow along and like be into it. Regardless of whether or not it is true. Like that takes some legitimate talent, but it does not mean that it's right. And I have taken everything with a grain of salt, and I've tried not to even use much of that here on this channel. And I also don't want to make enemies here, and I'm not trying to just slam the guy. Like he's doing what he's doing. He has a big following. It is working. It can be very entertaining, but yeah, I don't believe every word of it as gospel. I will certainly put it to you that way. Eric, what's up, Eric? Eric Worthen, appreciate your support as always. Thank you for being here. Eric says, I'm going to what is clearly the most important sporting event this month, the College Wrestling National Championship in Tulsa. There's clearly nothing more interesting going on. Go Pokes. Hey, Eric, I am so sorry you guys didn't make the tournament. That sucks. Jerome Tang tried to help you guys out. He went on and said, look, I played Nevada. I played Oklahoma State this year. Oklahoma State was much better. You guys got hosed. I think you should have been in the tourney. So I am sorry that you do not have that to follow, unfortunately. But shout out to the College Wrestling National Championship in Tulsa. Being in Oklahoma is very appropriate. That is an appropriate place to hold that thing because of the acumen there of the Cowboys and the state of Oklahoma as far as wrestling is concerned. So go Pokes indeed, Eric. Hope you guys are getting off that NCAA tourney schneid here pretty soon, even though it absolutely should have been this year. Eric, I was actually, I ran into somebody the other day wearing an Oklahoma State hat who was kind of talking about that and basically said the same thing. He was kind of like, well, we've got the National Wrestling Championships coming up. Like literally said that same thing to me. So I know another Oklahoma State fan that is in the same boat. Wolf 58. What's up, Wolf 58? Appreciate you being here. Always enjoy hearing from you. Wolf 58 says, what up, JK? At the Arizona State Nevada game, just wanted to send you some love and support from Dayton. Oh, you're actually like in Dayton at the game. Awesome. Keep up the good work. And as always, go Bucks. There we go. Wolf 58, our resident Big Ten Ohio State fan checking in here. I appreciate you, Wolf 58. Thank you for taking the time to do that. Did not have to, certainly from the Arizona State Nevada game. Supporting live from Dayton. That is dedication, folks. Dedication. Wolf 58. I am here for it, and I really appreciate you. Curious what the score is of that game. I'm definitely going to go relax and watch some of that as soon as I'm done here. And speaking of that, that is about your 5 to 10 minute warning. 5 to 10 minute warning on that front. We are at halftime. Holy cow, 53-26. Boy, point proven. What did I just say? Jerome Tang said about Nevada and Oklahoma State being better than Nevada. They're trailing Arizona State 53-26 at halftime. Woof. Woof, woof, woof. Not good. Not good. I am sorry, Pokes. I am really, really sorry about that. Am I missing anybody else? No. Okay, we got one left here. So, all right, if you have something in, get it in at the buzzer. Click the $ below the chat box where it says "Say something" if you have anything. Also, please like the video before I finish here. I would really appreciate that too. That all really does help me out and is totally free. So JBHOS Jibhas. I don't want to mispronounce it, but JBHOS says, and I sincerely appreciate that support. Very, very generous donation. Thank you. Truly do, and especially hopping in for your first super chat to do that. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Says Colorado was the first team to bail on the Big 12 back in 2011. Why would you invite them back? Utah screwed BYU in 2009 when they tried to leave the Mountain West for the WAC. They punked BYU in 2011. Utah will try to screw BYU every chance they get. I certainly do not doubt that after seeing numerous interactions with Utah fans over the last 6 months to a year since we've been going back and forth through all this. I don't put anything past them. I don't doubt that for a second. I don't envy you guys for putting up with Utah fans on a regular basis. Look, there is something to, I can understand saying, hey, bleep Colorado. They left once. We're not inviting them back. I get some of that sentiment. And really, some of that sentiment is why it drives me crazy that some folks in Pac-12 country or just across the college football landscape are like, why are Big 12 fans like reveling in the Pac-12 struggles here? And it's like, hey, remember the Pac-12 was the first to pull anybody from the Big 12 when realignment happened the first time? Like they kind of have never cared. Yes. So my anger is like really more toward the Pac-12 on that, and then how they're now acting about the Big 12 coming back around. Like you get what's coming to you sometimes. The only thing I would say is it's just like if it's a calculation now of survival. Like we have thrown a lot of conventional thinking out the window. We've thrown rivalries out the window in the name of survival and realignment. And if that is something that will help kill the Pac-12 and therefore elevate you and give you a better chance of long-term survival here in a fight for your relevant life in the college football world, then it might actually be worth inviting them back, even if they did kind of screw you once upon a time. The interesting part about the Colorado departure too is like that one didn't feel very contentious. It felt like Colorado had been heading there for a while. It felt like the Big 12 was in some ways fairly apathetic about the Colorado piece of it and them leaving. So I don't know there was like as much bad blood as the other three that eventually wound up leaving the Big 12 at that time, A&M, Mizzou, and Nebraska. But I get it. I get the sentiment. I absolutely do. And there would be a part of me that feels like that. I'm just sort of like blah and neutral on Colorado, to be honest. Part of the problem is that they've been so bad for 20 years since they left the league. Well, for 20 years, and then obviously that includes the time that they've been gone from the league. They've been so dreadful that, like, I don't know. I don't have super strong feelings about Colorado because of that. So it doesn't irk me quite the way that maybe it should if you were just going to take that statement on its own at face value. It doesn't quite irk me the way that maybe it should. So I would not shut the door on them simply because of that, but I get the sentiment and I get why you would say that. And I also just think like a lot of this really purely comes down to survival. It just comes down to what can you do to survive, and you're going to have to sometimes swallow your pride and do things you otherwise wouldn't really want to do. You know, I mean, it's kind of like if you're going to have to start playing games on Friday nights or Wednesday nights or whatever it might be eventually, not something anyone's going to want to do, but in the name of survival and generating more revenue, you might have to do it. If you're a media guy at the Big 12 tournament, you might have to swallow your pride and go sit way up on the roof instead of the courtside seats because Brett Yormark needs to make an extra $1.5 million for the league. That's just the way it goes. But appreciate your support. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your first time super chat. Thank you for being so generous. Genuinely do appreciate that. Robert, what's up, Robert? Robert says, just wanted to donate. Thanks, John. Robert, you're the man. Always love seeing you here. Thank you for being such a big supporter of the channel. Truly do appreciate you as well, my friend. And I hope you are having a great week. Boy, David Z, who always tells me his name isn't David, but I've tried to say Davad, whatever it might be. I never get an actual pronunciation, David. So until you give me an actual pronunciation, you're going to keep getting David. His name isn't David. Haha, just supporting the channel. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Mr. Z, can I call you Mr. Z? Sincerely do appreciate that, my friend. Says, go Cyclones in the dance this weekend. Yeah, we'll see how that playing game winner works out with Pitt there. I mean, I don't really have any specific opinion about Pitt and how they match up with Iowa State because I can't claim to have watched any more Pitt basketball than about half the game last night. But I do know K-State's been a victim of having to get that playing game winner in the bracket back when they played LaSalle. And lost in a 4-13 matchup once upon a time in a year when K-State actually won the league championship in the Big 12. So can be dangerous. I would just be on watch. Be careful with that one if you're the Clones. But the Clones do appear to be playing much better since they got kind of the drama with Caleb Grill all figured out there. All right. I'm talked out. I'm exhausted. I did an hour of actual live radio before I did this on 610 in Kansas City. So it has been a long day in addition to the day job for your boy here. I'm going to go relax, but thank you all for being here. Really do appreciate that. Make sure that you're spreading the channel, word of mouth, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever it is that you can spread it. LinkedIn. I have people that hit me up on LinkedIn about this too. Keep doing that work. Keep helping us build this great community that's now up over 16,000 people. You guys rock for doing that. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to support the channel. Leave a comment on the video. Like the video. Both of those things really do help me, and they are totally, totally free. Hit me up on Twitter at JLKurtz. Hit me in the DMs. I try to be as responsive as I can. It is getting a little more difficult these days, but I try to be as responsive as I can if you have a question or comment for me there. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see about Sunday if K-State advances past Montana State in the first round on Friday night. Decent chance that they would be playing then Sunday evening. So we'll see. Might then push it to Monday when the next live stream is. But again, follow me on Twitter at JLKurtz. I'll try to keep you guys updated through the channel as well here. And we'll go from there. Oh, I see Blue Maple. Hi, it says, hi, Karen. Let me, one last time. All hail Overlord Karen. Thank you for bringing you this broadcast. All hail Overlord Karen. I will see you guys soon.